My name is Hazelmillichamp and this is the Light on Leeds podcast. I had a fabulous chat on this episode with Amy Sanderson. She is the head of communication at Leeds Heritage Theatres, which encompasses Leeds Grand Theatre, City Varieties Music Hall and Hyde Park Picture House. She tells me all sorts of interesting facts and stories about the three, and I hope that you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed talking to Amy. On this episode of Light on Leeds, I have Amy Sanderson who's come to speak to me. Hello, Amy.
Hi.
Amy, you are the head of communication at Leeds Heritage Theatres. For people who don't know, what does that Leeds Heritage Theatres, what does that encompass?
So Leeds Heritage Theatres is we're the company that look after, programme, generally work with Leeds Grand Theatre, City Varieties Music Hall and Hyde Park Picture House, which are obviously three kind of really historic venues within Leeds. We've been under the same kind of we've been one company actually I think since 1989, but it's actually only in 2020 that we changed the name of the overall company to Leeds Heritage Theatres and just started to kind of let people know really that we're all one company, and that we're actually trying to do things across all three venues rather than just as kind of individual venues that people obviously come to and see things on. But yeah, there's a bit of a connection between all three.
Excellent. And how would you sort of describe them as their entities by themselves?
Well, so we always say they're always she, all of our venues. I don't really know why, but they always are. So we always say that Leeds Grand Theatre is like the grand old dame of Leeds. If you've ever been in it, it's just an absolutely stunningly beautiful venue inside. I did once hear someone describe it like the TARDIS, because from the front on New Briggate, it looks a bit small. It's quite a little entrance. It's quite kind of unassuming unless you look up and it looks a bit gothic. But I mean, inside it's just this kind of, the auditorium is just kind of this Victorian splendour. It's got really ornate kind of plaster ceilings and it's all red and lush and lovely. So, it's just an absolutely stunning kind of Victorian theatre, basically. The rumour has it was built... kind of the plan for it happened about 10 years before it actually got built, because Prince Albert came to the town hall with Queen Victoria and said that Leeds needed a good theatre to raise the tone. To raise the tone of the people from the sort of music halls, of which City Varieties was already in existence, but we can come on to that one in a minute. So the Grand was kind of built after that, and I think it took like a year to build. It's unbelievable when you think now how long something that big and that large would take. I don't think they've got the same kind of, didn't have quite the same health and safety regulations in those days possibly. It was built then, and it's kind of been in operation ever since. There's a lovely story that it opened with a production of Much Ado About Nothing, and it was unusual in the backdrops. They used Kirkstall Abbey on one of the back cloths, so it was kind of very much a Leeds venue from the very start, and was very much kind of a part of the city, really, at a time when there was probably a lot, there ended up being a lot more theatres. There was another one, I think it was the Empire on Briggate, further down where Harvey Nichols is now. That was another theatre there, which is obviously long gone. But yeah, so it's been there for a long time. It's now the home of Opera North, who sort of started there in 1978, and Northern Ballet are also a resident company. So it's kind of got those two things that are kind of very much part of Leeds and Leeds' kind of cultural offer. And then we programme a kind of year-round season of the big kind of West End musicals, big dramas, comedy, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
at the Grand. City Varieties is then kind of, it's a bit like I think it is one of those kind of hidden gems of Leeds. I think people do know about it, and people might remember hearing about it. It was on BBC for a long time as the home of the good old days, which I think actually finished in 1985. But for some people that's more recent than others. But it was the home of the good old days. It's an old music hall. It was built above a pub. The pub is still there. It's the Swan now, but it was just a room above a pub initially that they just used to put some shows on, and it's kind of been there since 1868. It is in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest continuously running music hall in the UK.
Wow.
And I think it's I think it's only one of 4 remaining that are kind of those original things within the UK. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's pretty unique, actually. It had a big refurb in 2011 to kind of spruce it up, and they discovered all sorts of bits of ceiling that they didn't know were there and all that kind of stuff. But it's an absolutely beautiful venue. And again, it's kind of got this unassuming entrance, and you go in and there's this kind of beautifully sort of shoebox shaped auditorium. It's quite small, it's really intimate. Comedians generally absolutely love it. Dara O'Brien said it was the best venue for stand-up in the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think comedians often love it just because it's so intimate. You feel like you're very kind of close to the audience all the time, and it's just got a lovely atmosphere. And obviously it's got so much history in it as well, that it just kind of like has a really special feeling, really. So now it's had a bit of an up and down time. Obviously it was a music hall. It kind of fell into a bit of interesting times during the kind of 50s and 60s, when it used to have there weren't quite strip shows, but they were these shows where they did these sort of tableaus of naked women, always women, but they weren't allowed to move.
Right.
So you could go and look at the naked people, but if they moved, it was a strip show, and it wasn't licensed for that.
So kind of if it didn't move, it was almost like you were looking at art.
Exactly that. Yes, yes. Naked people that don't move are art. That's how it works, apparently. And apparently, there's all these stories of of boys, kind of younger boys, going in with pea shooters to try and like make them move and all that kind of thing. And then it kind of came back out of that. The good old days kind of started, and there was that kind of whole time when it was used as a music hall. It was filmed every week on the BBC, and some kind of big names came through at that time, and it's just kind of continued on. So now it kind of really does a variety of things. There's again a lot of comedy there, there's music, do a panto every year. So we've just last weekend finished the rock and roll panto, which we've been doing since 2011, which is just I don't know if you've never seen it, it's brilliant. It's kind of all the actors are also the musicians, so they're either on stage, doing the part that they're playing, or they're in the band playing at the back. It's really lively, it's very funny, it's just a fantastic thing. So yeah, that's our annual panto every year as well. So yeah, that's the City Varieties, and it's pretty special. I think a lot of people have a lot of love in their heart for City Varieties, and it still, despite lots of people knowing it's there, manages to feel like something that you've discovered. I think it might be just because it's down a little alley off Briggate, and it's not someone that you necessarily know is there. But yeah, it's a fantastic venue. And then the Hyde Park Picture House, which obviously a lot of people know and love, is up in Hyde Park. It's a cinema that's been there since 1914.
Wow.
It's one of the it's one of those kind of old corner cinemas, and there's a lot of them in Leeds. Actually, they've just, because the Picture House is currently closed for a refurbishment, a really exciting refurbishment, which is going to actually put another screen in the basement and open out a little bit more space and make it more accessible. One of the joys of very old buildings is they're not always as accessible as we would like them to be, so we're constantly working hard to improve that. But that they've done, as part of while they're closed, they've done a project called the Lost Cinemas of Leeds, which I think is a website, and I think there's also a book, but that it's kind of looked at all of those sorts of old cinemas and where they used to be around Leeds. It's well worth a look, and there's kind of audio that goes along with it to tell you about the stories from those, and you can add your own stories. But yeah, so it's one of those cinemas, you can sort of see them, you start to spot them when you go around once you've looked at it, and it's still got the original gas lights that it had, and again it's just kind of a really special place for a lot of people. The programme there now is kind of cultural cinema, so it's a lot of films that you might not be able to see at the local kind of multiplex, but do other films and screenings of films that you might be able to see at your local multiplex. But it's an independent cinema, which are becoming few and far between, really, I think, across the country. So yeah, that's, as I said, currently undergoing a big refurbishment. I think it's due to reopen sometime later this year. So yeah, if you're keen to get back to the Picture House, then hopefully later this year that'll be an opportunity.
Oh, brilliant. I've not been to Hyde Park Picture House, but I have seen the website, and it's fantastic because they're just beautiful drawings of all of these old cinemas.
Yeah.
And also people are encouraged to contribute to the website with sort of stories or photographs of some of these old places, which I think is just a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it's really lovely, and it just kind of collects all that history that's so important. I think that people, I think that's what we realised when we were looking at kind of what those three venues had in common, is because they've all been here for such a long time. They're really part of Leeds, and they're part of a lot of people's experience. You know, growing
Yeah.
up, a lot of people say, "Oh, you know, I came to my first panto at City Varieties," or "I always used to come and see shows at the Grand with my mum." And it's like it's just part of people's lives, because they've been there for such a long time, that goes back for, you know, more than one generation or two generations. People really remember those experiences at those venues.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And I've been lucky enough to go to City Varieties. I went to see Bob Mortimer there. He does a
Oh yeah,
podcast called Atletico Mints. It's
yeah,
about football, which I'm not really bothered about football, but I'll listen to anything that Bob Mortimer does because it's hilarious.
yeah.
And like you say, it's such a I mean it's absolutely beautiful inside. It's like being inside a jewel box, really. And then, like you say, it's so intimate, and so it was great to see one of my comedy heroes and feel like I was so close to him on the
Yeah,
stage. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's, I mean, we always sort of joke about the City Varieties and just say it always punches above its weight, that people that, you know, would be playing or can play arenas or can play, you know, big, even the Grand. Some, you know, there's comedians that can play the Grand and do play the Grand, but also will choose to play the Varieties just because they enjoy it so much.
yeah,
And we do get, you know, we sometimes get people that are trying out new material and they want a smaller space. But yeah, it's just it's a special place. There's people like John Bishop always has a bit of a place in his heart for City Varieties. He's got a plaque on one of the seats that we did like a sponsor the seat thing, and he did one of his first gigs there when he was kind of starting out. And I think
oh,
he tells this story that there was like, I don't know, 30 or 40 people in the audience. And then he came back, you know, a couple of years later when his career had massively taken off, and his plaque just says it's always better with an audience. It doesn't
oh,
have his name on or anything. That's what it says. But I think you know, there's people like that have this kind of feeling about the Varieties as just being a special place, and probably somewhere that they saw a lot of their heroes or people that, you know, they followed as a younger person perform, and they wanted to go there themselves.
yeah. Oh, that's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's lovely.
And when you mentioned the good old days, I believe it's not something, because I didn't grow up in Leeds. It's not something. I think I remember the TV program when I was a kid, but it was quite strange, wasn't it? Because I think I'm right in saying didn't all of the audience get dressed up in sort of
Yeah,
old style clothes?
they did. I think a lot of people used to dress up in Victoria. I don't remember it either, so I'm really sorry about that. I don't remember it, so this is all just what I've been told. Yeah, people used to, and I've seen pictures. They used to dress up and go along, and it was very much in that style of old time musical. And there was a compare, and then they'd have the kind of acts would come on and do their things, and it was all broadcast. I think it might even have been broadcast live. I'm not 100% sure whether it was live or whether it was recorded.
Yeah, I seem to remember that it was recorded live. Yeah, but it just seems like such a bizarre thing, doesn't it? And isn't it funny how, in some ways, I suppose theatres become something that it sort of feels like not everybody always has access to, or feels like they should have access to. Whereas the sort of music hall tradition was very much more about sort of entertainment for working class people, really, wasn't it?
It was absolutely, yeah. It was absolutely about that, and it was something that everyone just did. Like, you
Yeah,
just went on a Friday and Saturday night. You went to the music hall, and I think that's partly why all of these venues, the Grand not so much. Obviously, as I said, it was set up to kind of raise the tone, and it was meant to be very much about high art
yeah,
and not for the riffraff that would go in the musical. Um, but even today, I think, you know, that's kind of one of our key things, is that we want everybody to be able to access that. And yes, there's you know, there's issue of how much that costs, but it's also about just people being aware of it and people feeling like they are welcome. And, you know, we would always want everybody to be able to come. And I think, you know, a lot of the program that we do is to appeal to as wide an audience as possible
yeah.
with that. So yeah, it's definitely still very much part of our ethos, really, that is to be there for people to come to, you know,
And
wherever you are.
it must have been very difficult for you, Amy, and everybody, you know, that you work with over this last sort of 18 months. That must have been very, very tough. How have you all coped?
Well, we're still here.
Yeah.
which is pretty miraculous. There was a couple of points where we didn't think we were going to be. It has obviously been very, very tough, particularly as an organisation. Um, we're generally very self-sufficient, so we don't get a lot of public funding. We get some money from Leeds City Council every year, but we're not Arts Council funded. We don't get other funding, so we generate 99% of our own income.
Wow.
So obviously, doors shutting takes away any ability to do that. So that was really, really tough. We've been very lucky in that we have then had government support over the last 18 months through 3 different rounds of the Culture Recovery Fund. So we've been really fortunate and really grateful for that. We also had some money from the National Heritage Lottery Fund to support on the Hyde Park Picture House, but also to support us in getting COVID ready to reopen and all of those things. So it's been very, very difficult. I mean, obviously the closure period was really hard, but I think what's been not equally, but it's all been hard. But I think just the kind of continuous uncertainty is what's actually really starting to take its toll on everybody. Even since Christmas, we ended up, we lost a few shows of Bedknobs and Broomsticks at the Grand, and that's all really difficult because it's not just that the shows then cancelled, so then box office are having to get in touch with people turn up because they haven't managed to get the message, so then they're upset because obviously they've lost something that was exciting for them. So it's just a lot, and that uncertainty unfortunately is still there at the moment. It's still continuing. People are still nervous, things are still changing, people are still not always feeling really confident about coming into a theatre. So I think that uncertainty is going to be with us for a little while, unfortunately, and it's going to take time for that to recover.
Yeah, I agree. It really does feel like such an uncertain time for everybody, and it's tough, but let's hope we all get through it.
Exactly, I think so, and I think that's what we keep saying. We've got there's that saying in theatre that the show must go on, and you just keep going. I think that's all we can do. You keep going until you can't do it anymore. But at the moment, we're still here, we're still going, and like a lot of the kind of other arts cultural organisations in Leeds, we're all doing the best we can to keep going and keep open.
Yeah, and we're grateful that you are. How long have you been in your role, Amy?
I have, it sounds like a very long time now. I've been there since 2010, so 11 years, nearly, probably 12 years actually, because I started in January 2010.
Wow.
So I've been there a long time actually now.
So you must have seen quite a lot of changes, and also, did you have a theatre background, or was it the communication side?
It was a theatre background, to be honest. So I've kind of worked in theatre kind of communications and marketing since I left university in sort of different venues and different places. I worked for Northern Ballet. That's what brought me to Leeds. Was working for Northern Ballet in 2004. So I worked there for 6 years with them, and obviously used to perform at the Grand Theatre as well. So I kind of started to get to know Leeds then. I'm not born and bred in Leeds, so I moved here since 2004. So that's kind of my background was very much more theatre and arts marketing, really.
And you have a learning and engagement programme, don't you? At the
we do, we do. We have we do a lot of work mainly with young people at the moment. So we work a lot in schools. That's really excitingly just starting to pick up again after COVID. Obviously, all of that had to stop. But we also have a youth theatre which ran pretty much throughout. Actually, we moved a lot of the youth theatre sessions online, which was a big change and a big challenge, but actually just provided a really good kind of bit of stability, I think, for a lot of those young people who obviously were at home. They were isolated, they were away from school, they were away from their friends, and we did a really we had like a really fantastic response to that, and some of them wrote plays and they wrote poems and they did stuff, and we came together, I think in September 2020 they came together for the first time we could actually kind of meet in person, and did like a sharing of all the work they'd done, and it was really moving just to see kind of how much that had meant to them to be able to continue with that and have kind of an outlet for what they were going through. So and the youth theatre is kind of a big part of some of the things we do. We also started a program a few years ago called Leeds Actors in Training, which is for slightly older people. So I think youth theatre goes up to 17, so it's kind of after that. But people that are kind of interested in a career in the performing arts, but that maybe don't want to go away to drama school just yet or aren't ready for it. And it's about them kind of just learning more about the industry and about, preparing them for how things are and doing things with that. So that's been really great to kind of have that up and running. And kind of our ethos across all of our learning and engagement stuff really is about, we're really keen to kind of open access to working in the industry, in the performing arts, whether that's on stage, whether that's in the marketing team, whether that's front of house, but like people being aware and engaged with what jobs are available and how you can get involved and how you can work, but also that even if you don't want to work in those industries, the skills that you might learn in a youth theatre or the skills that you learn to be on stage or do any of this stuff, it's about that confidence and just building the skills within yourself that you can then take other places. So it's very much about skills and kind of just developing as a person as much as, oh yes, let's go and be a star in a West End musical, because we can't all do that,
No, unfortunately not. That sounds fantastic. So in all of the time that you've worked with Leeds Heritage Theatres, I don't know if this is a difficult question for you or not, you don't have to answer it, but is there a performance that particularly sticks out in your mind, or something that you've seen that that you would say was the best you'd seen?
Oh, that's a very good question. There's been a few highlights, I think in 2012 we had Phantom of the Opera. Now, I grew up listening to Phantom of the Opera, and I have been to see it in London, I think, and there was something pretty special about that, just seeing it, that bigger show. I think it just felt like, for me, it was like that was one of the biggest musicals ever, and to kind of work on that and to have that coming in and, seeing the chandelier crash down and all that was pretty special. We did have to take the actual grand chandelier down so that they could put the one up that can crash to the floor. We didn't crash our actual chandelier. So yeah, things like that were really exciting. I think one of the most amazing things I ever saw was actually a production called Journey's End, which was about the First World War, and it was a play, and I really wasn't expecting to kind of, I kind of went and I was like, oh well, we'll see what this is, and it was just very moving. I think that was what it was for me. It was just one of those really kind of quite quiet pieces of theatre that just really, really moves you, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I went to see Bedknobs and Broomsticks over Christmas, and I took my 8-year-old with me because he's just started getting into seeing shows, and it was just amazing. It was magical. It was all of the things that I love about it. It kind of reminded me of, actually, this is why I like doing this job. It was just that real kind of sense of wonder and magic. And yeah, so there we go. There's 3. I think there's probably millions that I've missed and that I should have said, but I could, yeah.
Well, they're great choices. And so you said, Amy, that you have lived in Leeds, did you say, since 2004?
Yeah.
So that means that you are definitely qualified to answer the 3 questions that we ask everybody. First one being, what would you say is great about the city of Leeds?
I think what's great about it, and this was one of the reasons I was really keen to move here, even back in 2004, was I just always felt like it was like a really vibrant city, but it still had like a grit to it. And I think that's the best way I can explain it. It wasn't too polished, so it had some edges to it, but there was so much happening and it was so exciting, and it was still, I always feel like it's a bit like Leeds is still almost finding its place and finding its kind of identity and where it is, and it was just an exciting place to be because of that, because there's lots of things happening all the time. I agree.
Good answer. And if you had to pick something not so great about the city, what would you pick?
I think like all cities, I think some of it's about that kind of massive gap between areas of haves and have-nots. I think that's the same in all cities, and it's the same across the country. But I think it feels really noticeable at the moment. And I think the other thing for me is the transport, and I'm sure everybody says that.
Yes, that does get mentioned an awful lot.
It's just sad, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Really is.
It's just not as it could be, and I think it's a shame.
It is a shame. And if somebody had lived in Leeds for a very long time, would you be able to tell them about something that you would consider to be a hidden gem that they might never have heard of?
Well, I don't think I'm probably qualified if someone's lived here a very long time, because I haven't lived here in comparison to a lot of people a very long time. But I would tell people to go to Sugarwell Hill.
Sugarwell Hill.
Yes, which is very near where I live in North Leeds, and I didn't really know it was there until the first lockdown. I knew bits of it, but it's basically the hill and the kind of wooded area that runs between kind of Scott Hall Road, Meanwood Road. It's where Meanwood Farm is, Meanwood Valley Farm, and kind of Pottonewton Lane. And there's just this beautiful area with woods and paths, and you can walk along a bit by the canal down through the farm. It's bit of it's part of the Meanwood Valley Trail.
Oh yeah.
And there's horses in a field that you can go and it's kind of, you know, you're really very, very close to the city.
Yeah.
But there's just this kind of area that I didn't even really know it was there. All these footpaths and little paths through woods and trees, and yeah, so it's a lovely little spot.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I hope not too many people go and spoil it.
I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it, but yeah, it was newish to me, so there we go.
Well, it's always nice to hear about things in North Leeds, because I'm from South Leeds, so yeah, nice to hear about other things going on all over. And so we always feature a song by a Leeds-based musician or artist, and you have chosen a song called Northern Time by Hope and Social. Can you explain why you choose that song?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's reasonably new from Hope and Social, and I've known about Hope and Social for a long time in various different guises, and I've always just really enjoyed not just their music, but also they do so much in terms of kind of community work, and they do really exciting events, and they used to do, you know, lots and lots of different things, and I just think they're just a really great bunch of people. And then Northern Time, I didn't know about that song until I think I saw it on Facebook, and they'd filmed a video for the song in the Holbeck, and I just felt like it was just this coming together of two really great kind of Leeds groups of people.
Yeah.
And I really like the song. I really love that you can hear that they're from the north when they sing, and I just really liked it. And I think if people wanted to check out the video as well, it's just a really great song, and it's a really
I'll try and put a link to the video in the notes so people can click through and see it for themselves.
Yes.
And what will you be doing with the rest of your day today, Amy?
Well, I have a little bit more work-related things to do, and then I finish at 2 on a Thursday, so I will be going to pick my children up from school.
Oh, nice.
And probably making a lot of toast, and, you know, dealing with homework and reading and all those kind of fun things.
Well, thank you so very much for remotely connecting to speak to me. And I'm sure lots of people have visited your beautiful theatres and the wonderful Hyde Park Picture House. And I'll put lots of podcast notes, links, so people can click through.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. Amy has chosen to feature the track Northern Time by the fantastic Leeds band Hope and Social. As usual, there are lots of links in the podcast notes, and there will be a link to the video for Northern Time that Amy mentions in the interview. Speak to you soon, Leeds. Take care of yourselves.
What's happening in this great city? We'll tell you. Wait a minute.
Northern time, kicking out the side door. Any other time, this is what we live for. If you hold my glass and wait till the drink has cleared our veins. Northern time, stumbling through the side door, delicately dressed one more and we're done for. If you hold my glass and wait till the air has washed our breath. Now our talk is filled with hope. Another hour and we might be pulling at the seams, chipping at the concrete. Let's learn to leave it be. Count all the lovers' names drawn there on the glass door in breath and beer stains. The condensation knows all. If you say that it's okay, well, I'll draw our names that way. If we hold our nerve and wait till the drink has cleared our veins, to say this could be love, or something we could strive for, to say this could be us, something we might live for.